Thanks for joining us for another edition of The Small Business Show with Jim Fitzpatrick, exclusively on ASBN.com.
Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. You're watching another edition of The Small Business Show right here at ASBN.com. You know, whether it's on your website, in-store, or on social media, every touch point shapes how customers experience your business. So it's important for your brand to be consistent. On today's show, we're talking about the consistency with Bill Harper, the CEO and Chief Creative Officer of Brand Boss HQ. You've seen him here before on ASBN. Bill, thanks so much for joining us on the show once again.
Good to see you as always.
Sure. So let's start with the basics when we're talking about consistency. Why is consistency so crucial and critical for the brand's success?
Yeah. So the way that we make affinity choices, the way that we decide something is based on an expectation of outcome. If I say French fries, chances are pretty good that what just popped into your head is a red sleeve with a big yellow M on the front of it with a bunch of fries popping out of the top.
Now I'm hungry.
And the reason, right, and now you're hungry. So the reason for that is because McDonald's has gone out of their way as a part of their branding, in particular, to brand their fry experience. And that fry experience is so associated with the brand and Americana and American fries and the whole thing at this point that when people think French fry, their first thought is, I go to McDonald's. That's consistency, right? If you were to go to a McDonald's in Chicago and have a different experience than when you went to a store in Florida or in, I don't know, wherever, Cincinnati, then that consistency line is broken, and that's a problem. And let me give you a better example that I think a lot of people can relate to is James Bond. How is it that James Bond, from Sean Connery to Daniel Craig and whoever the next iteration will be, has been recognizable as James Bond, even though the actors change? And the answer to that is because the brand pillars, the brand experience is consistent. Mm-hmm. James Bond is always physically fit and action-packed. James Bond always gets the bad guy and the girl. James Bond is always, shaken, not stirred, and has gadgets and is fiercely loyal to mother country and to doing the right thing. That consistent set of things is what allows us to know what we're going to get when we make our purchase. Right. That's why we choose, is because we say, we want this kind of an experience. I know for a fact that I can get it from that brand, and therefore that's where I'm going to go to get it. Now think about the difference between James Bond, Austin Powers, Ethan Hunt, and Jason Bourne. All of them are essentially French fries, right? They're all just international spies.
That's right.
But the difference in story, one of them being funny, one of them being rogue rebel, one of them being patriotic, one of them, each one of them has a different flavor.
Right.
And that consistency of flavor is what lets us say, I'm not really a Mission Impossible guy, but I'm really bullish on Jason Bourne. Or I really don't enjoy James Bond, but I really love Austin Powers, even though essentially what you're getting is the same thing, international person of mystery.
Yeah, that's exactly right. What do you see are as some of the common mistakes that businesses make to create, or I should say that really maybe, create confusion or distrust out there among consumers?
Yeah, so the biggest one is the most fundamental problem, and that is we've got something for everybody. And the best analogy I can think of is when you want a great steak, you don't go to a buffet restaurant, you go to a steak restaurant, right? And businesses try so hard to be buffets that they don't realize how much they're devaluing their steak.
Yeah.
And so they'll go out and they'll say, well, I can do this. I'm a plumber. I can do this little thing, or I'm a painter, and I can paint $1 million home, and I can paint a super difficult commercial project, and I can paint your dog's outhouse. I don't know, whatever.
Right.
And what that does is confuse the consumer. Now the consumer or the customer has no idea what to think about you except, well, they're kind of a jack of all trades, which is the worst possible thing you can have a customer think about you, because it devalues you back down to being a commodity product.
Yep.
What you want instead is to say, okay, we made money last year doing these 4 things, but we made the most money doing this, and our people enjoy doing this the most, and we are most proficient at this thing. And so we get rid of the other things, and we just focus on the one thing that we're really, really good at. And in doing that, you protect yourself. And you see businesses make this mistake all the time on the other end too. They get really big and well known doing something, and then they try to branch off. My favorite one of them was Bic Pens years ago tried to make underwear. One of their portfolio division managers got it in their head that the Bic name was so well known that they could just simply go off into other places. The other big famous one is Harley Davidson's cologne, which was another colossal failure. The notion of like our brand is so strong that we'll reach outside of our known thing and we'll do something else. And every time brands do this, the further that they get away from what they consistently are good at, the more it fails. And so businesses just have to figure out other ways to grow that don't violate this consumers. We only have one thing that we attach in our heads to it. Volvo is safe, and that's it. Like if they tried to be safe and sporty, all of a sudden we'd be like, but they're the safe brand. That's how consumers think about things, and that's why consistency is so critical.
Yeah, no question about it. How can smaller businesses with limited resources ensure consistency?
The biggest thing is to choose. Like I was saying, if you think about it, and a great example of this is a plumber that two plumbers in one area in Maryland that were competing against each other inadvertently, right? Both of them sort of being buffet style, like we do all types of plumbing.
Yeah.
Well, one of them realized that customers had a real worry about mess in their home. And so that plumber's big key difference was they came out and they said, look, we wear booties, our people will always be clean, like everything that we do, like we have a whole process for it. And for the people who prized, yes, I need the work done, but like I don't want it to damage my house, or I don't want it to be messy or stinky or all the rest of it, they did that. Another brand was all about price, and they said, listen, we understand that price consciousness is important to some people. We will never violate our cost. We will give you a cost that's a little bit more than the other guy, but if we run into a problem, we won't charge you more for it. Now, that was a risk on their part because, of course, every 1 in 20 jobs, something happens was totally outside of the spectrum, and they wound up eating it.
Right.
But overall, the brand benefited because the people who saw it were like, hey, I got taken for a ride the last time I hired a plumber or a painter or whatever. What I really need is somebody who's going to lock down on a price and is going to stick to it. And this is how brands win. The biggest heartache of doing it is that you have to let go of something else in order to claim that space. And that's where brands fall short. They say, I understand what you're saying and I believe in it, but that means I would have to let go of the 20% or 25% of my revenue that I did last year. What they don't realize is that when they make space of that 25%, they actually gain back 50 or 75% in new people that really value the thing they do and that they're efficient and profitable doing.
That's right.
So it's a little bit of a hard transition the first time you do it. But once you do it, your business can't help but accelerate because you become so much clearer in what the value of the company is. And again, all of that comes back to consistency.
Yeah, no question. And I will say this too, that I'm sure that you agree. It's important for businesses of all sizes, but even probably more important that at the lower end, as you've got startups and entrepreneurs out there that are beginning businesses, they might have a team of 2 or 3 or 15 or 20, but be sure that team, however big it might be or however small it might be, understands the value proposition of that company, so that when they're communicating with the outside world or the consumers out there, you're all singing off the same sheet of music about what that business means and what you stand behind, what your values are, right? Because I think all too often, sometimes we think that we focus so much on the advertising and the marketing, we forget to tell the people inside the company what the values are and what the value proposition of that company is, right?
You're correct. You are 100% correct. You cannot afford to have anybody off the music.
Right.
Everybody has to be on brand. Everybody has to be saying the same thing, because if one rogue McDonald's starts deciding to do blue paper instead of red cardboard for their fries,
or crinkle fries instead of the shoestring,
it throws the whole experience off, right? Like, oh, well, we decided to do waffle fries, and we're the only McDonald's in the country that does waffle fries, and it's like, but that's not a McDonald's fry.
No.
And so that is so incredibly important. And this is where sales and marketing really come together, is that marketing is simply a reflection in one way, sales is a reflection in the other.
Right.
They have to be aligned. They have to be singing off the same sheet of music and working together. And
Sure.
if they're not, your business is not going to get anywhere in terms of that kind of momentum because everyone is hearing something different.
That's right. That's right. And sometimes for small business owners that need to meet payroll or need that next level of cash injection into their business, sometimes they can slide off of their value proposition and say, oh, that, we're working on, let's say, an HVAC system for a homeowner, and the individual says, by the way, do you do any electrical work outside of this? Because I've got a big electrical job. And even though the company only focuses on HVAC systems, sometimes it's tempting to kind of go off the rails a little bit and go, yeah, we can do that electrical job for you. And now, lo and behold, you've told your team inside, and you've told even the consumers that, hey, they'll also do electrical work, or maybe they'll do plumbing, if you get them in the home, rather than saying, nope, we've got a great company that we work with that's electrician or electrical contractor. We just do the HVAC. Sometimes it's hard for small business owners to give up that perceived additional income or business, right? To say, no, we don't, we don't
so
do
there's
that,
really
even though they
two
might have
ways
the
that
availability to do it.
Yeah, there's two ways that you can solve against that. The first one is to create a new department, right? And that's very easy. You say, we don't do that, but our sister company, blank, does.
Yeah.
And that's all that they do. They do this kind of electrical work that's related to whatever, right?
Sure.
And so all of a sudden now it's parent company name, and you've got two divisions, okay? That's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
The other thing to do is to rise up to something that is a bigger promise. So if what you were doing before was, we promise to be the on-time plumber, or we promise to be the no-mess plumber, or whatever, and all of a sudden you go up to, we now promise to be the no-mess contractor, and we happen to handle these three things. We do HVAC, plumbing, and electrical, or whatever. Then all of a sudden you've still maintained a truth, but the way you've done it is you've said, okay, we handle no mess across multiple things, as opposed to no mess this, and then, oh, by the way, we also happen to do some electrical that. And that's the difference. It's how it's perceived. You think about Nike's promise of progress. They have progress across every sport at every level, from somebody, having a health issue and trying to just get healthier, all the way up to professional sports. How do they do that? The low common denominator for all of them is that each person appreciates and is seeking one step, one little progress step. And so their brand promise of just do it is, if you'll just do it, we'll make you better today than you were yesterday, and better again tomorrow than you are today. That brand promise stays true. It just happens to stay true over many, many things that they offer.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, good point. Out over and above their sneakers, everything that you touch with Nike is just going to enable you to just go out and do it, and to your point, be a better athlete or
you got it.
Right?
That's the secret.
Yeah. Bill Harper, CEO and Chief Creative Officer at Brand Boss HQ. We'll show all the information here about his company. So if you want to get a hold of him, there's no better person to have in your corner when you're starting out, or maybe even when you want to rebrand your business, than to have Bill on your team. So Bill, thank you so much. I really appreciate you stopping by once again.
Good to see you as always. Take care.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of The Small Business Show with Jim Fitzpatrick, exclusively on ASBN.com.